All right. Hey YouTube, I'm Lucky, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at and talking about every exotic that's currently in Destiny 1 that has not yet been brought into Destiny 2. If you are a D1 Alpha veteran, comment down below. Be proud of that. You've been playing the game for over 7 years now, and you're going to know the majority of the exotics that we're talking about. And we're going to discuss both how cool the exotic was in Destiny 1 and could it fit in Destiny 2, or would it be worth it for Bungie to bring it back into Destiny 2, because some of these exotics, are not as interesting as others. But we're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to go through every single exotic that has not yet made it into Destiny 2. A lot of them have already, and it would be nice if we just had them all brought over in one fell swoop, because I think a lot of us aren't especially excited for recycled content, but some of these exotics are pretty juicy. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first up, we have the Touch of Malice here. Obviously, this is an exotic that you got from doing the King's Fall raid. Such a powerful, such a potent exotic. It would damage you by firing it. I think you would fire it down to like the last bullet, and then it would damage you. And so there'd be a variety of different strategies you could utilize in Destiny 2, like using a healing rift with this, using obviously any sort of restoration or stuff would be really, really strong with something like this. And obviously, because it damages you, it breaks its archetype and does a little bit better. So I would definitely like to see this return to Destiny 2. I think it was a pretty cool staple of Destiny 1. It was very niche. You didn't really see this all the time. I almost never saw it in PvP, but it was definitely a niche. And obviously, if King's Fall does return next season, as is predicted, then this would seemingly come with it. And it wouldn't be a copy paste from Destiny 1, I would hope. They'd probably add a little bit of pizzazz like they've done with a variety of other exotics, like the Hawk Moon and the Thorn, have some real pizzazz. And honestly, the Hawk Moon and the Thorn in D2 are more interesting than the Hawk Moon and the Thorn in Destiny 1, in my opinion. Let me know if you agree or disagree with that. Moving on to the next exotic, we're going to talk about the Icebreaker. Now, this thing was game breaking from the very beginning because it could regenerate ammo. And what we would do is in the Vault of Glass, we would get, go really far out into the raid and we would just shoot raid bosses. This was before a variety of turnback zones were made. And so people would just be icebreaking bosses in Vault of Glass. It was broken in year 1 of Destiny 1. It was broken in year 3 when they nerfed the special ammo economy. This was one of the this and I think Invective were one of only 2 exotics that had regenerative special ammo. And so, would the Icebreaker fit in the Destiny 2 sandbox? I think so. I think it wouldn't be as bad. We do see a plentiful amount of special ammo right now. Would I want people to rock an Icebreaker in trials on, let's say, Eternity and just sit in the back and just let their ammo farm up? No, I would not want to see that. So maybe they would create it in a D2 way that makes it more interesting, or you don't just get ammo for just sitting around. Maybe you have to do something to get it, or who knows how they would rework the Icebreaker. But I definitely could see this returning, and I think that it's such a staple exotic of D1 that I think it does have a place in the Destiny verse. But let me know if you agree or disagree. Next up, we'll talk about the Young Wolf's Howl. Now, this is an exotic sword that I hadn't used a whole lot. I believe it operates similarly to the Titan specific sword in that it does like a big slam. So clearly this could fit back in the game similarly to the Titan exclusive sword. So I could see that returning. The Zalo Supercell. This was an arc auto rifle that functioned similarly to how the Risk Runner works now. I mean, if they brought back Zalo and it had a new function that made it significantly more unique than the Risk Runner, I would think it would be cool. As far as I remember, it worked very comparable to that, but was an auto rifle. And with Arc 3.0 coming back, I mean, it could be really cool if Bungie did bring back the Zalo Supercell. Let me know your thoughts about this exotic. Next up, we'll talk about the Noland Beyond. Now, this was an exotic that broke the game in a variety of different ways due to its flinch or lack thereof. It was in the kinetic slot, and obviously the mechanics of kinetic and energy ammo or special weapon ammo have changed quite a bit. I do think that the Noland could fit in the game. I would like to see it just because it's such a cool staple weapon, and I really liked it in Destiny 1, even the times when it was a little bit broken. Hopefully they don't add some, crazy aim assist values when they do bring it back, but I think that this definitely should be brought back. And honestly, if I were to create a list of the weapons that Bungie should bring back of exotics from D1, this would probably be at the very top of the list or near the top of the list, in my opinion. Let me know if you agree or disagree with that. Then we have the Red Death. Now, this is an exotic pulse rifle, very similar to the Crimson hand cannon we have right now. It functioned in a similar way. You can see its perk right here. Each kill heals you and speeds up reloads. Do we need Red Death back? Not necessarily. I guess Crimson kind of stole its spotlight in some ways. So if they do bring the Red Death back, perhaps they would add some other functionality to it, because otherwise it would be kind of in an odd place where Crimson does very comparable to what the Red Death did. And so let me know your thoughts about that if you agree or disagree. I don't. I used to really like the Red Death, and then when Crimson came in Destiny 2, I kind of liked it for because it had the similar notes of the Red Death, but now I think it sort of takes away the shine of it, and I don't know if it would fit in the game quite as well, which is unfortunate because this is like truly, if you were a D1 player, you know this weapon very well. Like this was a true staple of D1. Next up, we'll talk about Abaddon. This is an exotic machine gun that, as far as my understanding goes, and again, I was a PvP meathead during D1 times, so I didn't really spend as much time being articulate and analyzing the game as much with like meta and PvE and optimal loadouts and stuff. But my basic understanding of this was that this is the Solar Thunderlord, basically. And this is just the Thunderlord, but just made in solar form. There were some other different functionalities to it, I suppose, but more or less that's the way I viewed it. And it never really seemed to live up to the hype. I never really cared that much about this weapon. Again, if you feel free to roast me down in the comments if you think that this was one of your favorite exotics in D1, but that was my perception of that exotic particularly. Next up, we'll talk about the Plan C fusion rifle. I never really got into fusions in D1, but I do remember how this one functioned. You would swap to it, and it would have a reduced charge time, which is comparable to a perk that just exists on fusions right now in Destiny 2. So I don't really know if that would work with its current exotic perk. If they did bring back Plan C, I imagine they would have to do some other rework to it. It was a really popular exotic and one that has been around for a long time, so I would like to see this one brought back in some capacity, and I think a lot of other people would like to see this too, especially D1 veterans, because this was definitely a well-known exotic from D1. Nemesis Star is here. Now, this one has the Rise of Iron symbol on it, so a little bit later on in the game. An exotic, again, we got an exotic solar machine gun, one that I didn't really spend a whole lot of time with. I don't have any particular attachment to it, never really needed to use it for anything when I did PV activities, so I don't really see a huge urgency for this to come back into Destiny 2, but let me know if you agree or disagree. Then we've got Nova Mortis, again, back on the similar note like we talked before. Basically, the Void Thunderlord in my perception of how this weapon worked. Um, I could see this coming back. It would be mildly interesting, in my opinion, unless they did, add some cool new perks to it. Could synergize well with, Void 3.0 builds and the other one with Solar. So, not against it by any means. The Necrochasm, really exciting exotic auto rifle that was brought with Crota's End and was so good and so fun to use. Its explosions and everything would be really cool. Obviously, the current sandbox of Destiny would require some sort of rework in some ways because we have a variety of other weapons that have if not more powerful explosive perks than this. So perhaps it could do something like explosions plus the poison effect, that we see like with the exotic SMG and with Witherhoard and stuff like that of that nature. Could be really cool. I definitely think Necrochasm belongs coming back, and especially if they brought back Crota's End as a dungeon like they've previously mentioned before, it would be cool to see Crota dungeon with Necrochasm at the end. I think I could definitely see that happening, and I think that that would be really fun to have back in the game. The Kvasov does exist in Destiny 1, but it's not an exotic, and it would definitely be cool to see that come back as an exotic. Look at all these different perk options we got here. I would definitely like to see that. And then we've got the Dragon's Breath. Now, this was a funny rocket launcher. It would shoot a solar grenade. I don't think it initially had that effect of shooting a solar grenade. I forget how it worked initially, but I remember it was very lackluster, and then they buffed it to where it literally shot a solar grenade. And I believe it, if I'm remembering correctly, it didn't do that at the start. So it was like a big change to this exotic overall later on in D1's life. And I could see this coming back. Would it be game breaking? Of course not. It wasn't even back then. It was just kind of interesting to shoot a rocket, it hits the rocket, and then drops a solar grenade there. And I think that there could be some fun builds with that, especially with Solar 3.0 stuff. So definitely could see Dragon's Breath coming back, but it wasn't so interesting in D1 that people are going to be that excited about it, unless Bungie does something crazy with it. We'll talk about the super good advice. Now, as far as my understanding goes of this exotic, I did use it a good amount. It basically just had like mulligan, like you would shoot it and if it didn't do damage to the target, it would refund the ammo at a really high rate. So maybe it had like an even stronger version of Mulligan. Um, was never really the meta for anything. It was just kind of fun to use. I remember shooting the Oversoul in Crota's End, and it would just fire indefinitely. So it was kind of fun to shoot that, and a variety of other things throughout the course of D1. So I could see this coming back. I personally wouldn't be that particularly excited about it. Maybe you would be if you had an attachment to this, but we got the Fobbing Strategy as an exotic auto rifle. I believe it had a few different modes where it could change its fire rates and stuff. I could see this coming back, but I wouldn't be too jazzed about that necessarily. We have Dark Drinker, and this was really good for Wrath of the Machine. Basically, a sword that could, you spin around in circles and stuff. Very, very strong. I could see this coming back. Raise Lighter was my favorite of the exotic sword trifecta. It was just super strong and super fun to use. I could see it coming back. Obviously, we do have swords that have similar movement functionality to the previous D1 exotic predecessors. So if they did come back in some way, obviously they're going to need to do something extra to interest us in the D2 sandbox and the D2 world, because the D2 world is a bit more nuanced than the D1 world. We have the Hereafter Sniper. I believe this was a sniper where you get like a headshot with it, and it would create essentially a flashbang. Not that interesting. It was never very good, in my opinion. I could see it coming back, but they would definitely have to add something more than that, because just sniping someone and then blinding the enemies near it really isn't that interesting in Destiny 2, in my opinion. I think there's could be a lot better things, and that certainly doesn't seem like a very enticing exotic, but let me know if you agree or disagree with that. Then we have the Universal Remote. Now, this thing broke the game because of the special ammo economy again for a bit there. Obviously, with the current economy, with special ammo weapons being in the kinetic slot, I don't think that this would break the game. I don't think it would have, it doesn't have any sort of regenerative ammo and stuff like that, as far as I remember. And so I could see this coming back. It would be pretty cool to see overall as well. And I believe that's the last one on the list. Let me know your thoughts about all of these. Which exotics would you like to see return the most? And that's a wrap on this video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Smash the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Later.